Hi, I'm Autumn,
And I'm Lora,
and together we're the
the
Boo
Boo
Sisters.
Sisters.
Howdy, Boo Crew.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year. Wow, we've been off for a few months, kicking back, relaxing, reading haunted novels. I don't know, what have you been doing, Laura?
Oh, I've definitely been reading novels. Not all of them haunting stories, though.
That still works. A novel's a novel.
I'm catching up on my reading list. That's mainly what I'm doing. That and work.
Yeah, isn't everybody? Everyone's back to work. The drudgery. Been back to work now for like a month, right? Because by the time
And
this comes out, it will be February. February something. We'll see when this gets edited.
yep, I think you've
Um,
already announced the day we're coming back. We
yeah,
we
I
just
did.
we just don't remember.
So we have to meet that goal of it's February 5th. It's like the first week of February, and we're not going to be ready, but we're gonna try to do it. We were kind of talking, Laura, that we are both kind of stumbling because we're unsure how to podcast because
Yeah, we've
we ha
forgotten.
we haven't recorded for 4 months, maybe
It's
three.
it's been at least three. Yeah, it's been a while.
So give us some grace as you listen to this episode.
We're not
Uh,
starting off on a bad foot. This is gonna be great.
we should update people on what we did over Halloween. Laura was out to Virginia to visit me, and we had a great Boo Sister time.
A great Boo Sister time. Yeah, we went to Paradise Springs Winery and we went on a paranormal investigation evening where you could be a part of their crew, kind of in a tour around their facility. And they did provide some equipment. We also brought Autumn's equipment to use.
hmm
If you happen to be out there and they're doing ghost tours, it's great. If they're not doing tours, just go out there for the winery because it's also beautiful.
Yeah, the winery is so pretty and it's so family friendly. And Alex Matsuo, who's the head of the Association of Paranormal Study, which I work with, she led the tour and she did such a great job. It was really interesting. And she did go into some of the history, which I feel like by this time I've forgotten. But the cabin and the old structures on the property have been there since before the Revolutionary War and Civil War.
So, on the property itself, you had the histories of residential families that maybe lived there or near there. And then you also had the battle element and the soldiers. And the first place that we went to was an event space.
That barn had been moved, like
Mm-hmm.
taken apart board by board. It used to sit in Fairfax, and then it was put up again where it sits today.
And that first place that we went to, you fill into this room, and there were probably, I don't know, I would say 15 people on the tour. And naturally, my instinct is to disappear to the back of a crowd. So I moved to a table in the back. We all did, me and Ottoman. Our mom was there as well. Shout out, mom. And we sat down by this glass, like 4 panel window door, kind of that would accordion out maybe when it was a nicer day that you could open it up and use it for an event space. And almost as soon as we sat down, there was a knocker rattling on the door.
It made the door move and made a sound.
And both me and Autumn looked at each other and we looked back at the door and then we looked at each other again. Did you hear that? Yes. Okay. I'm sure it was just the wind. Yeah, of course, it was just the wind. I mean, we're here for a paranormal investigation, but it was the wind, clearly. So then for the next 5 to 10 minutes, we're sitting there trying to replicate this sound by pushing on the door and
Like
like
banging on
shaking
the
the
door.
door.
And the door did not shake, which was the weirdest part. Like we tried.
Mhm.
It was so strange.
And so we could not debunk that. But that was even before the investigation officially began. Like, no equipment was turned on, nobody was asking any questions. So it was just an unusual, unique thing. And then we did end up as a group asking some questions there. I don't know what your impression was, Autumn, but I didn't really feel like that space gave us very much.
Yeah, there was maybe some back and forth. She was using one of the things that spits out words and like an Ovilus device, which had some interesting responses, but nothing that solidified anything was there.
Yeah, it was more like the spirit box kind where it speaks through the static. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And it didn't super coincide with the stories.
or the
However,
questions. Yeah.
yeah. However, when we were traveling to the next location, I, on Autumn's Ovulus, which is just the box that shows words, it doesn't say anything, but it's a similar concept. I got a couple words pertaining to like battle. I can't remember exactly what it said, but I think it was soldier and
Like commander.
commander or colonel or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And that was unusual because we actually were outside on the property where the battles would have been taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then we went into more of a residential cabin where they had the original kind of like a family cabin that had been expanded. And we sat in the expansion part because the older part of it was so old that it couldn't have as many people on the floor or it would fall. We would all fall through because it
Right. It
wasn't
couldn't
very
support our
stable,
weight. Mm-hmm.
but it was original house adjacent.
And it was really interesting. And one of the other participants that came brought a REM pod and set it on the floor while Alex was answering questions. And the first question being, if there's anyone here with us, can you let us know by touching that red light? It's going to make a noise and light up and let us know you're here. And right away, there was an instant response. There was like a couple minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, where there was no responses. And I asked a question and then repeated my question and said, can you touch that box to let us know you're still here? And nothing happened. And then I said, could you touch that box, please, if you're still here? And immediately the REM pod went off. And I
Yes, I
just
do
remember
remember that.
everyone laughing like hysterically because the spirit was just waiting for us to be more polite, I
Yep.
think, in their house.
Like you come here asking me questions and aren't even using common courtesy. How dare you?
Right. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but I feel like there was some series of questions where the spirit had asked someone to go outside or check outside or,
So there was a whole series where you actually excused yourself to go outside and cough because you weren't feeling well.
oh,
And
yeah.
so you didn't
Hmm.
want to make noise inside. So you left. And then it asked about you because you had been asking some questions and you had been there before. It
Hmm.
said something about illness and then is she okay or something like that pertaining
Well,
to
like
that
the
kind of
Ovilus
concept.
said, like sick and illness, and there was a
And
specific
then
thing like
outside was
outside.
also one.
Uh-huh.
You and Alex had been there before together asking questions,
Right.
and you thought it was some kind of elemental type, like more ancient spirit or entity based on
Right.
your
We
previous
had
questions.
investigated there before, and we again connected with something using just the REM pod. It was very REM pod specific. And based on the line of questioning, it seemed like an older entity. We asked if it had been there before the Civil War, before the Revolution, and it kept beeping, beeping, beeping. And then we finally asked, were you here before anything? And it said yes. And then when we asked if it was a girl or a boy, which we asked several times, it never answered if it was a girl or a boy, and it never went off. And finally, we said, do you not like that gender question? And it beeped. And Alex informed me that when Native Americans were on the land, they had shaman type people that really didn't identify as a gender. They were just kind of the wise ones, the mystical ones. They didn't really have an identity as we define it today. So that was just interesting. Who knows if we had contacted the same thing or somebody different, but it's interesting to think that maybe the spirit did recognize Alex and I, and that's why it showed maybe some more concern. Ironically, I have not been sick since. So if we did come into contact with some kind of higher healing medicine woman,
Oh,
man, like, is it possible that they could have embedded some mystical, magical healing energy? People that know me know that I am sick all the time, especially right now when flu cases are so high,
oh yeah. There's lots of sickness.
especially in Virginia. They're extremely high right now. Knock on wood, I'm not saying I can't get sick. I probably most likely will, but it's just interesting that during this flu season, this winter season, I haven't been sick since then.
The entity's listening and it's like, no, you shall get sick.
Anyway, that's our big story. It was a great time.
One more note we had of something that else that happened over the break. We have a couple additional Patreon members to thank for joining.
Yeah, thank you to our Patreon members. We want to thank Paula. Thank you, Paula. Yay. And our new Patreon member, Sandra, who, side note, is also our mom. Thanks, Mom.
Thank
It's
you,
about
Mom.
it's about time you joined, Mom.
No shade, no shade.
But we love you.
Thank you, Patreon members. And as a thank you to all the rest of our Patreon members as well, we had a poll up because we do these types of things on Patreon. So if you're not in there, get in there. You can participate. We did a poll for what haunted location type we should have on a future episode.
The choices were Wild Wild West Hauntings, Revisiting Utah Ghosts, another cryptid episode, or Spirits of the Libraries. And drumroll, your winner was the
Libraries
libraries. To all our readers
and scholars and writers,
and
all of the
teachers
people.
and book lovers, we're doing libraries today.
Your votes matter. So make sure you get in there and participate when we have those and check out the newest videos.
Yes, go and check them out. It's a fun little side dish of Boo Sisters. Okay, I think I go first. Do I go first?
Yes, you do. Take it away, Autumn.
My story is Peoria Public Library in Peoria, Illinois. Was this on your short list?
Usually, Autumn and I, to make sure we're not doing the same one, we'll give each other a hint of something we're doing. And she said, mine starts with the letter P. So then I was like, great, I'm going to stay away from everything that starts with the letter P. And it ended up that there were probably 5 different libraries that were haunted that had the letter P either in their name of the library or the location. So,
Oh
yes,
my
that
gosh.
was one of the ones.
I thought that was a good hint because I was like, P, nothing starts with a P. That'll be a good hint. You probably didn't go too far
Well, if I saw it with the
looking
letter
at.
P, I was like, ignore it. Don't look at it.
Okay. It seems this library was cursed long before the first book ever slid onto a shelf. Our story begins in the 1930s with a Mrs. Gray, a widow already buried in grief, financial stress, and then fate decides to really test her by placing her nephew in her care after her brother's death. This nephew, unfortunately, had a habit of attracting lots of trouble. Arrests, court dates, repeat, repeat, repeat. Trying to protect the last piece of family she had left, even if he was a troublemaker, Miss Gray hired a lawyer named David Davis. Davis agreed to represent her nephew, but he made a deal with her that was basically said, hey, you don't have money to pay me up front to be his lawyer, so I'm going to need some collateral. And the collateral he wanted was her house. So he took her
Oh,
house as
no.
collateral, giving her time to try to come up with the money or earn the money or raise the money. But by the time that his fees were to be paid, she, of course, did not have the money to pay him. And she had promised him her house. So he got the house. She couldn't pay.
if you're in a state like that, you don't really have a choice, right? If that's what you have,
Right. If that's
because you
all
can't
you have
pay.
because you're a widow, at that
Hmm.
time you probably can't work. You're just left with what your husband has. Like, that's what it is. Like, that's all you have.
Yeah.
So Davis did exactly what you'd expect a man in the 1930s with power and confidence to do. He sued for the house that he had been promised. Furious, desperate, and betrayed, Miss Gray kicked her nephew out of the house as everything she owned began slipping through her fingers. She was so mad, right? And this ungrateful little kid probably didn't even really care. Not long after that episode, her nephew's body was found floating in the Illinois River. No explanation, no witnesses, just a lifeless body drifting downstream. Mrs. Gray was said to be shattered, but she didn't blame herself. She blamed David Davis and maybe the world itself. However, there were some in town that expected that Gray herself killed her nephew out of pure rage. She had lost everything, and now she had just lost her home for this, like I said, probably ungrateful teenager that didn't appreciate the lawyer anyway. So there's all this speculation in the story of, was the nephew just in a bad crowd and got into trouble? Was Mrs. Gray really upset and killed him out of rage? Did the nephew go confront David Davis and there was some kind of altercation? Nobody knows.
Hmm.
Anyway, as she was forced from her home, legend says Mrs. Gray returned back to the property, cursed the land, and cursed all who claimed it, and cursed anyone foolish enough to build upon it or use it for their own personal gain. When Davis took over the property, strange things began to happen almost immediately. The once beautiful gardens refused to grow. Crops failed on the whole property. Flowers withered in the spring and summer. And then the knocking started. Night after night, pounding on Davis's door when he opened it. Mrs. Gray's nephew would be standing there, soaked, pale, and begging to be let inside. And just as Davis tried to speak, the figure vanished, which is
Mm.
exactly when you should sell the property and move.
Right. Why would you? So this ghost shows up and you're like, oh, nope, that's normal.
Yeah, that's normal. I'll just deal with that every night. No, thank you. So, as I dug into this story and this legend further and further, there's no formal report that Mrs. Gray actually indeed lost her house. However, Mrs. Gray and the house itself did exist. So, how did these stories begin? How do these legends like escalate into a story that is either mostly true or mostly just exaggeration, right? And we see this a lot, I think, in the stories that we tell. From what I found back then, and from what another podcaster I listened to said also, was back then newspapers weren't necessarily used just for the news, but were to tell a good story, right? So they would
Mm.
take truth and spin it to make a story that people would want to read all about it, right? Like the
Hmm.
news that you have to know, it's sensational. So there is a newspaper in the late 1800s that says that the former owner of the house, Mrs. Gray, did in fact curse her land after losing the property, but there's not a lot of more information than that. These stories have just kind of come out of this sensationalized newspaper article that we don't really know a lot about. So
Was
just
there a specific
something to keep in mind.
person she was told to have said the curse to?
No, it
Like
was
a
just like
witness or
cursing,
something?
not that I saw. No, it was just, this
Okay.
is just the story, the legend. Fast forward to 1894 when the city of Peoria purchased the land. The house was torn down and they built a public library. And the curse, despite being an embellished story about Mrs. Gray and her nephew, seems to have remained on the land, even though it might be just a legend. Because the library's first three directors all met very sudden and disturbing ends. And this is not legend. This is true historic facts. The first gentleman, E.S. Wilcox, loved the library, and actually he was deeply involved with its construction. There's a story that he invited the full staff that was going to be the staff of the library to see the library in its beginning stages of construction before it was even fully built. There was a woman recounting, and she remembers Wilcox's invitation to see the building and to see the state of it and how it was coming and how beautiful it was. And a group of staff members goes to this little invitation to see it and look around, and no one can even tell that it's going to be a library. Think of it like
Hmm.
going to your house when it's just a cement slab, right? And sticks sticking out of the ground. But Wilcox was so tickled to show it off and so excited about this library. And he was like, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it so grand? It's going to be so amazing, that everyone just stood around and went, wow, yeah, it's great. It has great bones. I can see it now. Like, just
Good
because
job.
yeah, because he could see it in his head, but everyone else, no. There's another written account of Wilcox in which the mayor admonished Wilcox for his crazy spending on the library. Mayor Woodruff says, "You need to stay within your budget." And Wilcox responded, "Well, if you won't invest in the education of Peorians, then I guess it's going to have to come out of my own pocket." So he
Wow,
always made
attitude.
yeah, he always made sure that the library had collections that were very valuable and very rare. And I'm telling you these stories because he was so just in love with this library. He loved it so much. It was his baby, right? So he served as the director of the library for 24 years. And one day he walked outside the library after work and was struck by a streetcar. He died in the road right outside the library. His obituary actually reads, "Veteran librarian fails to see danger approach," which
Hmm.
I just thought was a little ironic.
Yeah, that's interesting. The way it's
So,
written makes it seem like, oh, it was so obvious what was wrong in the scenario. It seems like they made it sound more suspicious.
who made it sound more suspicious?
The article saying that he failed to see it coming.
Well,
Well,
I
of
just feel
course,
like
if he
a
had seen it coming,
streetcar,
he wouldn't have gotten it. But at the same time, you could have been like,
well, it
streetcar
would have
accidentally runs into man.
I just don't think that happened back then. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's not like there's a car everywhere, right? There's very limited cars. And
Hmm.
so you're probably not watching for it because you're not used to cars whizzing by, right?
Mm.
It's different than today when we teach our kids to look both ways. You probably hadn't learned that because cars didn't exist.
And
But
did
it
they
was
even have
probably
speed limits? Because I don't know how that even worked back in that time period.
Probably not. Who knows? We're not the authority on that.
Right.
Someone tell us if there was speed limits in like the in the
Were there
1930s
stop signs?
or 20s. I don't know that either. Probably not, because all that
Probably not.
regulation usually comes after there's accidents.
Right.
The second director is Samuel Patterson Prowse. Unfortunately, during his tenure, the library fell into some disrepair. The board really didn't want to invest much more money in it, and so he didn't have a lot to work with. The only improvements he made was the hiring of a children's storyteller. Prowse was in a library board meeting in 1921, probably trying to convince the board to raise more money for the repairs that continued to be needed. He adjourned the meeting, and right there, after he adjourned the meeting, he suffered a massive heart attack, dying in the library
Mm.
itself. The third was a man by the name of Dr. Edwin Wiley. He was the first trained librarian to run the library. He left a remarkable record, including the rearrangement of the library from a closed to an open shelf system. Do you know what that is? I'm sure you do. Should I explain it?
Is it is it where the books are chained or railed in place? Some of
Yeah,
them,
it's
like
kind
the
of
more
like,
valuable
yeah.
tomes and stuff. And
So
or
from,
people would get locked into cages with books if they didn't want them to be taken. So like if you wanted to look at specific volumes that were more valuable, especially because there weren't multiple editions of things back then or necessarily a lot of copies. This library might
Hmm.
have like the only copy of something. And they're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, we're not going to let you leave with that. So we're going to lock you in this little cubicle where you can study.
Yeah, with cages. Yeah, that's kind of what it was like. He also opened a periodical room and he doubled book circulation in his tenure.
Nice.
The library's own history records say, quote, apparently a man emotionally driven to work beyond his physical capacities, end quote. He sadly ended up ingesting arsenic and was a victim of suicide on October 20th, 1924.
Mm.
No one knows. I put that date in specifically because, guys, October 20th is my birthday. And I feel like when we research stories and there's a date that like
Resonates with
is
you.
related to
Mm-hmm.
you, it's a little bit odd, right?
And you were born in 1924 too. That's so
Oh
weird.
my gosh, I know. So here we have these three men that died, the three directors of the library. So people of course, are continuing to cite Mrs. Gray's curse for this string of devastating and sudden deaths. The original library then was torn down in 1966, and a new library was rebuilt on the same site. But if history has taught us anything, it's that curses don't care about renovations. In the
I
library's
like that.
own in the library's own records, I found records myself of one more director dying, quote, a sudden death with no other information. And there were accounts of two major floods due to malfunctioning sprinkler systems in the library as
Hmm.
well. Additionally, I found that the library opened other branches throughout the past 100 years or so, including one branch called the Lincoln branch. And they decided to build that branch on an old public graveyard. Interestingly enough, no one is talking about this. I read this 30-page document about the library's history, right? This isn't from like a haunting website. This is just my
Mm-hmm.
own research on the history. And I'm reading that, oh, and then we opened the Lincoln branch on what was this old cemetery. And I was like, what? And no one's like digging into this. But listen to this. So I'm
Okay.
reading the history,
Mm-hmm.
and the relocation efforts to build that Lincoln branch moved 321 people to the Springdale Cemetery in the
Mm-hmm.
late 1800s when it was built. But the historical records where the Lincoln branch was built are not complete, which suggests that some bodies still actually remained underneath the Lincoln branch library.
Mm-hmm. This is the point in time when I should be like, I did the Lincoln branch. No, that would be great though, wouldn't it?
You
Wouldn't
said it
that be
started with
great?
a P, not an L.
Yeah, exactly. No, but my library has the same starting point.
Oh gosh.
What makes someone go to a bit of land, like in this case, this land for years that was supposedly cursed, right? The property was cursed, and
For the
say to
main branch.
themselves,
Yeah.
this seems like a great place to put a library or what used to be a cemetery,
Right.
and says there could still be dead bodies here. You know what? We should build a library.
Right. So if anyone's listening in Peoria, I would like to know the answer to this because somebody, people in that town had to be like, this land is cursed. Let's build a library. Yay. And then those same people, Peorians, had to be like, here's a cemetery. Let's expand the library to a second branch.
My brain just skipped to like three different places, thinking about how certain cultures and different stories believe that the only way to keep a witch buried and unable to come back to life or unable to do magic from a point of death is to bury them and then grow a tree on top of them. And I was
Oh,
just
yeah, I've
thinking
heard that.
about this in terms of the library systems, and I'm thinking, wait, maybe because like books are made out of trees, that's kind of like a million trees being planted on all these bodies. Interesting.
Hmm, that's a reach.
It's a mystical anomaly, I'm telling you.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of cool to think about. But are you saying all those people are witches?
Or the cursed land, it's a magical land. How do you keep it from,
Yeah,
you know?
that's one of our crazier theories. We'll just
It
leave
doesn't
that
have to be,
there.
it doesn't have to be your theory.
So during the construction of this Lincoln branch, workers reported finding even more human remains during the construction. But in
Hmm.
2009, they wanted to expand the Lincoln branch. And
Hmm.
so to do that, knowing that there was this huge graveyard there, they had to first do an archaeological dig. And they ended up having to relocate another 135 people, including a densely packed small grave with 48 children in it.
Oh.
I know. What do you think happened?
I possibly know a reason as to why, based on my story, the smallpox epidemic.
So many people or so many children were dying, they just kind of threw them in mass graves.
Children, adults, everybody. Yeah, there
Oh
were a lot of
gosh.
mass graves, but that
Well,
might not be the only reason. There are other types of mass graves too, right? Like
yeah.
sometimes families would do a mass grave that would be reopened and reopened again. I mean, not 48 children, that would be a huge family, but sometimes that would happen because they didn't have the money. So 48 children could be maybe an orphanage or something where they didn't
Yeah,
have the
that's
money
true.
for the burials and the plots.
Yeah. That's so sad.
Yep.
That's a lot for in this like land that's a library. They ended up moving about
But that was
500
the
people.
Lincoln branch,
Right.
not
So,
Peoria.
correct. Another quick fun fact. Illinois state law requires that all found human remains in a construction zone need to be removed and identified
Oh
before work
gosh.
can be taking place. And
But if
these,
you have
like I
people
just said,
that
it was
are
a mass
unnamed,
grave.
yeah,
Yeah. So it caused huge delays and cost for the library addition to take
yikes.
place. Yeah. Ironically, there aren't any reports of hauntings on this site because I think people don't know about it.
It could be because we don't talk about that ghost problem.
Well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. Okay. So I'm going to get back to the main branch of Peoria Public Library and I'm going to tell you the hauntings happening at the main branch.
See, these libraries, they're even called branches. My tree theory all over
Oh, yeah.
again.
There it is. So, staff members have long whispered about the feeling that someone else is still there. Even when the lights are dimmed and the floors are empty, it starts subtly a sense of being watched, the kind of awareness that makes you turn around only to find no one behind you. People working late have reported footsteps echoing through the stacks, slow and deliberate as if someone is pacing just out of sight. When they go to investigate, the sound stops. Not fades, just stops. Like whatever was moving realized it had been noticed. Then there are
I
voices
actually hate that.
where it just stops when you're like paying
Well, I
attention.
don't like ghostly things that stop doing something when you're paying attention. Like,
Oh
I would
my
like noises to
gosh.
continue or
I
for
feel like this is a good place to tell my story of my own personal haunting experience that I had at my grandparents' house, but I don't know, Laura. I think I should maybe save it
save
for
it.
like a. Okay, I'll save it so people have to come back and
That's
hear it.
right. Come back for
Okay.
other episodes. It might be this season.
Then there are voices, soft, close, sometimes calling a name. Several staff members have said they were certain a coworker was trying to get their attention, only to discover they were completely alone in the building. No one else on the floor, no one else on the schedule. Staff member Amber recalls her terrifying encounter on the Dewey Decibel podcast. Quote, Lower level 1 was closed stacks. I went to put away a couple books, walked down another aisle, put away more books, came back, and there was a book on the shelf just laying there. We put away all the books. We didn't have just stuff sitting out, we would have gotten in trouble. I know that book wasn't there when I went by it the first time. Shortly after, I had to go to the annex room, where I distinctly felt someone breathe past my ear. I went home that day a bit spooked. End quote.
Mm.
The basement is where the stories grow a bit darker. More than one person has described seeing a shadowy figure standing in doorways, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Others talk about a sudden heaviness in the air, an overwhelming feeling that they should leave immediately. Some listen to that instinct, some don't, and later say they wish they had. In a hallway that stretches from the elevator to a maintenance room, several events have been recorded. Stacy, a maintenance worker, recounts, quote, "It was 2 years after I'd been working here. I was closing up at night and I was right back here by the boiler room and at the night we had to do boiler readings before we head home. And I was putting my key in the door, and the first thing I noticed is the hairs on the back of my arms and my neck stood up, like static. I was like, that's weird. And I turn and look, and I see it wasn't a person. You could see through it, but it was dark. It went from the hallway here into the elevator, but the elevator doors weren't open. They were closed. It was something I physically saw. It wasn't human form. It was like a 6-foot blob that went into the elevator. I
Ew.
froze. I quite literally almost peed my pants. I was so scared. I went into the maintenance room and called my roommate. And I said, I just got the crap scared out of me. What do I do? She said, lock the door and come home.
Ew. I don't like that one.
Yeah, it's a little
6 foot
creepy.
blob creature.
Well, she says it was like kind of see-through, so it could just be a shadowy figure, but it seems ominous, like just watching and waiting. There are also the cold spots, areas where the temperature drops without warning, sending a chill straight through you, even in the middle of summer. Places where books have been known to fall from the shelves on their own or doors gently swing shut when no one's near them. And then there's the figure that others have seen walking the building. A man dressed in early 1900s clothing has been spotted more than once by different staff, seen briefly in hallways or reflected in glass, gone when someone looks directly at him. Those who know the library's past believe they know exactly who he is. E.S. Wilcox, the man who built and loved the library until his sudden death. One more little tidbit. The current director of the library is Randall Yelverton. On a podcast that I mentioned before, the Dewey Decibel podcast, where I got a lot of my haunting information, Randall says that he was unaware of the library's curse and the string of directors' deaths when he accepted his job. Before Randall, all the past directors had a strict policy to not share the rumors or the lore of the hauntings with the public.
Mm.
However, Randall now allows this to be a shared piece of the library's history and personality. Yay, Randall! Shout out to Randall. He's still not allowing overnight investigations, even though they have received multiple calls from TV ghost hunting groups.
Hmm.
The end. Episode 1
Well, that was
for me.
interesting. Yeah, for you. We're not done. So I have a question. Do you believe all of the haunting then to be attributed to Mr. Wilcox, or do you think Mrs. Gray or any of the other library people could be there?
If I had to guess, I would probably guess it's multiple entities from what I read and heard. I think that there's something in the basement that's different from what is like upstairs in
Yeah.
the stack. So, oh, I get to ask you for the first time this season, Laura, what is your boo rating?
I would give this one a 2. I'm very quick to say my rating now. That was kind of I impressed myself.
2. Yeah.
I think that there are certain elements to it that are a little bit more scary, like the basement spirit entity, whatever that thing is. I don't like basement ghosts in general. I think if you're a ghost and you decide to be in a basement, then there's something wrong with you.
Right. Right. What are
I'm
you doing
judging
down
ghosts
there?
out there,
But maybe
apparently.
maybe you are kind of trapped. Maybe there is something that traps you in places. We don't
I do
know.
think in certain cases, yes, but in other cases, we seem to get a lot of these darker, more mysterious in basements. And it could be a fear cage scenario. higher EMF or something with wiring and things down in a basement. But it could also be because that's where things gravitate toward that are less occupied. That in and of itself is a little bit creepy. I don't mind Mr. Wilcox, and I think it's pretty cool that Randall decided to let the word out about the hauntings. I would go there for sure and investigate.
I would go there. I think it would be a fun investigation.
What would you rate it?
Randall, let us come investigate. I would probably give it a 2, I think is a good rating. I don't think it's not scary,
Mhm.
but there's obviously stories we've done that are much more chilling.
Oh
So,
yeah. Okay.
okay. Yay, we're back into it.
My
Your
turn.
turn.
My haunting for episode 1 of season 4 is the Stillwater County Library in Green River, Wyoming.
Oh, great job. None of those words have a P.
Right? I did so well.
You're
That
like,
was my
stay away
only
from
task.
all P's. Yeah.
Okay. My story begins not with a library, but with a cemetery. So strap on your time traveling boots because I'm about to take you on a spooky walk in Green River, Wyoming. Imagine walking through cracked headstones, crudely carved and overgrown. You trace your fingertips along the cold stone, noting the dates reading from 1860 to 1892, some not having dates at all, and many of them even noting that they were dead by smallpox, which we already mentioned. Then suddenly, you jump forward to 1914, and now you're walking through recently churned ground. There are no longer any headstones, the graves have been removed, and though rumors say that not all bodies were relocated with them, broken bits of stone, cloth, and wood litter the ground, destined to be slowly reclaimed by the soil. You jump through time again. It's now the 1930s, and instead of fields of barren earth, there's grass, trees, even. Kids running around and laughing, park picnics on warm summer days. A few more paces ahead, and the world changes again. Flash forward to 1944. Rain's coming down hard. Construction workers gather around a large pit dug for the foundation of a new World War II veteran housing project. But they've been forced to stop, gathered around the grisly sight of human remains, skeletons that still have their hair and bits of clothing hanging off their bones.
Oh my gosh.
You
Yikes.
time jump again, only 12 years to 1956. The Veterans Building lies in ruins around you, having been demolished. Its structure was deemed unsafe, the ground underneath having shifted too much. Police tape sections off part of the demolition zone. More remains have been found by the cleanup crew. With another step, you're pulled into the 1970s. There's grass again, and a single swing set where local kids gather, swinging to and fro with a gentle squeak. More excavation has started, and more graves have been found. One of the boys looks inside one of the unattended caskets and sees a man with a red beard and something shiny. So he reaches his hand inside to claim the treasure, like he's heard other kids have done before him. But his hand gets stuck and he starts screaming. The kids scatter. You jump another 10 years. It's
Wait,
quiet.
you didn't finish that story.
Yes, I did. Kids scatter. That's the end.
What happened to the person's dad?
That's the, I mean, he gets out.
Well, you didn't tell us that part.
You're getting snapshots of
Oh
what's
my gosh.
happening.
People have got to finish their stories around here.
Okay, so you jump another 10 years. You're suddenly sitting in a quaint library. It's quiet. No screaming, no laughter, no more construction equipment, but there's a pervasive sense that something remains, something deep in the ground that continues to churn up remnants of gravestones, casket handles, bits of old wood, and other hints that this was once a place of death.
Ugh. I
This,
guess it is kind of cool to think places that were cursed or places of death are now like a living memorial to history through books.
And sort of it's like the regrowth process, all the nutrients that go into the soil, and then the rebirth that happens afterward, things that
Right.
grow from those nutrients.
Right. That's a cool way to look at it.
So this is Stillwater County Library. Ground was broken on Green River Cemetery in the mid 1800s, though it wasn't officially established until 1892. After your time traveling experience I just gave you, you might be wondering why there was so much that went on here. The first time bodies were dug up, it was on purpose. As a result of accidents and epidemics such as smallpox, the cemetery filled too quickly and was expanded before the city eventually decided to relocate the bodies altogether, as well as the grave markers. However,
Mm.
some of the bodies remained in that original graveyard, much like the Lincoln branch of your story. A small
Right.
section in particular that was called Grader's Row, where reportedly that was full of railroad workers who had died of smallpox, and those hired to relocate the bodies refused to dig them up due to their fear of germs that were still in the soil. It was thought that
Mm.
those germs stayed around for 100 years. Other bodies may have also remained as a result of not being found when dug up. Due to the natural spring that runs through the area down to the Green River, as well as the ground being primarily clay in the soil composition, the land is soft and constantly moving, which led to graves and structures themselves moving over time. From its days as a cemetery, almost every time the earth in this spot has been excavated for any reason, bodies have been found and removed. To recap what this looks like from your time traveling session, that means bodies have been recovered in at least these timeframes: 1926, 1944, 1978, 1983, 1985, 1986, and 1996.
Yikes.
This alone could be causing the spirits here to be in a state of unrest. According to one gravedigger from the 1920s, who actually is a part of a book that I'm going to mention later on, so this is a firsthand account, caskets were sometimes dropped and broke open when they were being moved. And on one such instance, he looked into a casket and claims that he saw a woman with flowing red hair down past her knees, dressed in Western attire with a pistol on each hip. He decided to get a closer look and saw what appeared to be bloody scratch marks in the casket wood, as if she had
Oh
been buried
no.
alive and had tried to and failed to get out.
Oh my gosh.
And
Everyone's worst
unfortunately,
nightmare.
that wasn't uncommon back then. We've heard
Right.
other stories like that.
Right.
Strange things have been reported since the library itself was being built, starting with the construction tools that would go missing, which is a common occurrence, right? Construction, it could potentially bring up more activity. We've talked about that. And a lot of construction sites, tools will go missing in haunted places for some reason. Ghosts apparently really like tools. Some people think it's because they're trying to get the construction to stop.
I think that's exactly why construction tools go missing because the entities are upset about the reconstruction.
Yeah. So that could be the theory here. Activity has continued since then as well, in particular since the library opened in 1980. Paranormal accounts in the Stillwater County Library include lights going on and off for no reason, batteries being drained, disembodied voices, and this is one I've never heard before: flapping sounds reverberating through the building at night.
Oh my gosh. It's our first haunted bird.
Or
Flap,
I was,
flap, flap.
I know, right? I was thinking, okay, but what if it's legitimately birds or bats in the roof somehow?
Oh, that's probably more likely. But let's pretend it's a haunted bird.
But then I was also thinking of Harry Potter and how the books fly around. And that's what I thought in my head. I was like, oh man, it's a magical library and the books are flying at night.
Wait, when do the books fly at night? Is that just in the books?
I know from the most recent Harry Potter in the Wizarding World game, you go into the library and the books are flying
Mm.
around and you have to catch them. So you have to use a
Oh my
mobulus to stop them from moving.
gosh, that's like so deep.
Okay,
The
that's
only
a
I
deep
just
that's a deep cut.
that's a deep cut.
Just
I
pretend I didn't say
I
anything.
just if we're talking Harry Potter, all I can feel that's flapping is those keys that flap
Yeah,
around.
the keys do flap around.
Right, maybe it's just some keys then.
Okay, yeah, it's just some keys for all the
Flopping around.
library cages.
Right.
A former library director claimed that staff would see lights dancing on the walls. They ruled out car headlights and other sources themselves. Librarians have also made a number of reports about hearing their names called, like your library. That seems to be a common theme. They also smell tobacco smoke. They've seen doors open and close. They've had crying from the girls' bathroom on multiple occasions. One prior custodian had a run in with the apparition that might be responsible for this crying. He was vacuuming one night when, in his words, he saw her bent over with her hands on her face like she was crying. After staring at it for about a minute, it looked up at me and then stood up, and she had an 1800s dress on. She stood there for 30 seconds and floated along the wall and went through the curtains and the ceiling with a popping noise.
That is a strange story.
That's so specific, right?
Yeah, it's very like someone sat down and wrote it.
Mhm.
Fantastical.
There are certain things everybody picks out when they tell a story, right? And if the things that stand most to you out are things like how somebody is dressed or the strange movement that they had, or in particular, I thought the popping noise was interesting,
Yeah, the popping noise is the most interesting part of that.
which I've
That's
never heard before in a ghost story, in a paranormal
right.
story. Are you in the mood for more apparitions?
Yes, of course. I'm always in the mood for more apparitions.
Because I was going to say you're in luck either way and then just continue.
Okay.
So, other reports have included a ghostly figure wearing a top hat, a lady with a quote, mean face, a man who appears to have an astronaut like helmet on, a man running with old fashioned pants that are rolled up and end at the knees, and a small girl who stands next to people in the bathroom while they're washing their hands.
We've heard those bathroom ones before. I feel like bathroom is a common place for ghosts to hang
I
out for
hate
some
bathrooms.
reason.
Bathroom ones are the worst.
I know. If only we could ask Moaning Myrtle if that's true.
See, the fictional ghost. If only we could ask her if that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's not all.
Okay, great.
For all of my fellow writers out there, here's some activity in particular for you. Before there were computers at the library, typewriters were known to type on their own. Unfortunately, there wasn't any paper loaded into them, and previous heads of the library didn't really like the ghost story thing, so there were never any messages that got typed out. However, staff since then has tried leaving typewriters there overnight, loaded with paper, but they have not received any messages since that time.
Oh, that's a bummer. Wouldn't that be so cool if you came in and there was something on the paper like hi?
And you had a camera on it, so you know nobody messed with it.
That would
Yeah,
just
that would
be
be really cool.
amazing. I feel like I should just we that could just be a thing people use in old locations that
They should. Yeah, why
location.
not?
Right, because that's if it's the right time period
Mm-hmm.
and ghosts know that as a communication tool, why wouldn't you use that as a ghost hunting device? That's like genius.
That would be cool. So, a second typing incident occurred with an old style computer terminal in the library, one that did not have word processor or email or any features or capabilities for documents. And this computer terminal supposedly spelled out a librarian's name across the screen when her back was turned.
Mm,
So she looked back and it had her name on it.
that's weird. It's like the original Ovilus or something.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I had an account like this happen to me in our Wisconsin house.
Okay, so one episode this season, we'll promise our listeners, I'll tell my
Stories.
story and you can tell your story.
People will be like, oh no, we have to go back. Yes, exactly. That's our plan all along.
Right, exactly.
Several of these accounts were or have been attributed to a woman by the name of Elizabeth Moriarty. Sherlock Holmes fans, anybody?
Moriarty.
Anybody?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just take that last name. I'm just gonna change my last name. It's happening.
To
Although I don't know that
Laura
I want to be
Moriarty.
evil.
Is the person you're about to talk about evil?
No.
Okay,
She
we'll
was
see.
the library's very first librarian who supposedly walks the halls now because she loved it and didn't want to leave. That's the same old kind of
Yeah,
story,
right.
which
You
is
stay where you
great.
love. Yeah,
but not much is known about her beyond that point.
that's
In
too bad.
the staff lounge room, one investigation that I found a firsthand account of, a team announced that they were going to end their investigation session soon. And the spirit box said, "About time."
Oh my gosh.
I was like, that's great.
About time.
Then they followed it up by asking the spirits to make all of their K2 meters go off at the same time, promising to leave if they could do so. And after a few minutes, all of the K2 meters lit up.
That's significant. If you can do,
Right?
like, we're not sure, right, how any of these tools work for certain or how spirits can or cannot manipulate them. We have theories, but if, like, the theory we know about K2 is that if they get close to it, it should light up.
Mm.
So that a spirit could have enough energy to light up all of them, that's a lot of energy.
And I also like that they're confirming with a different piece of equipment. So the first one being the spirit box, then they get a second, almost immediate hit from a different
Hmm.
piece of equipment that seems along the same lines of communication. That to me is significant.
Right. There is value in
Mhm.
redundancy.
In addition to the human spirits said to be in the staff lounge room, it is apparently also haunted by animal spirits of a dog and a cat.
Oh my goodness. Then there has to be a bird there.
Maybe. Investigators, they think there's a dog and a cat because investigators have gotten EMF spikes and K2 hits, but they're always down towards the ground, like floating hot spots that are just off of the ground.
We've had that. We've like
Yes, we
experienced
did.
that. Yeah,
Yes, we
but
did.
cold. Yeah, crazy.
The library still houses fragments of stories, bits of bone, casket pieces, and unmarked graves in the library. They've kept these relics, some of them that have been found. And these things all suggest restless roots beneath the floorboards. See what I did there? Roots, because of the tree theory.
Nice.
And in fact, these relics have been found on the property as recently as 1996 when new pipes were being laid. It is even said that there are still people buried in the back corner of the property and possibly more that they don't know about. Could these be the ones responsible for so many strange occurrences? Nobody knows for sure. Stillwater County Library keeps a ghost log of paranormal stories and evidence gathered throughout the years from staff, visitors, investigators. This ghost log started in 1993 with librarian Mickey Gilmore, who made it her project to collect them and eventually published a book in 2018 called Spirits in the Stacks.
I love it.
Gilmore and later librarians have been very selective on which stories get recorded into their ghost log, not wanting to add anything that might be naturally explained or debunked. And yet, despite their selectivity, the accounts now fill two 3-inch 3-ring binders.
Oh my goodness.
This is in part due to a new thing that they've been doing since 2006, which I guess isn't that new. My brain's still in the 2000s. This is fine.
At our
The new thing
age.
that they've been doing is ghost walks, which is essentially guided ghost tours with paranormal equipment, and people can come and investigate just like we did at Paradise Springs.
That's cool.
So these are being offered mostly during the fall leading up to Halloween, and the library's ghost log continues to be filled with accounts, new accounts, anything from EVPs to stick figure anomalies on SLS cameras and everything in between. With a history of hundreds of years of death, disturbed graves, it is no wonder that Stillwater County Library remains a place of stories, not all of them trapped in the pages of a book.
I like that ending.
So while mine didn't have a lot of specific entities, it seemed like it had a lot of really interesting history on the land. And I thought also really interesting paranormal accounts that I hadn't heard of before, like the
Yeah.
fluttering of things, potentially the popping ghost. That's what I'm going to
The
call it, the popping ghost.
popping ghost.
So, Autumn, what is your boo rating?
If I'm rating it on scariness, I would probably do a 2. Not necessarily because I think there's something ominous, but because I think activity seems to be happening all the time that it might catch me off guard when it happens because it would just be happening so frequently. Does that make sense?
I agree with you. I was thinking you were going to give it a one or a two.
I almost gave it a one, and then I decided there is a lot happening
Hmm.
and that I just might be the shock factor.
I don't particularly like that it was built where it was built. There was a lack of respect given to this land and the ground that was, sacred to different families and that had loved ones there, and maybe their bodies weren't handled with the utmost care. It's unfortunate that that happened. And I could see certain entities being upset, angry, frustrated at that happening. I
Yeah,
didn't get the feeling that any of the firsthand accounts that I read were negative, though.
right,
Mostly it was spirits
right.
that coexist or maybe on a residual level moved around in the same space. So
That's
that was
kind of
kind of
what I was
interesting.
saying is that nothing seems ominous or
Hmm.
scary or threatening. It just seems maybe whoever's choosing to be there just likes being there. So I think that's cool.
So we started it off on a tame one today, I feel.
I feel like every season
We
opens up
started off
with like
tame.
ones or twos or and I think we're not only just gradually, taming back in our audience, but also for ourselves.
Right. I
Can't
agree.
just jump in to the Gettysburg Orphanage, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's a lot,
That's too dark.
right? So this is
That's
like
too
a fun
dark for the
one.
new year, everyone. We're taking it.
You have
We're
to keep it
easy,
light.
easy sloping. We're getting there. We're gonna get
Keep it
there.
light. Keep it light, Dutch. Keep it light.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's from Ghosts of Girlfriend Past. I just told you to go
Oh,
watch that
I
movie.
went. No, I went and I looked for it, and it said I had to pay for it, and I didn't watch it.
Oh, I do have it on old school DVD. You'll just
That
have to
helps
watch it
me not at all.
when you come. Okay, next visit, we're gonna watch it. Sorry, people listening don't know. They're like, when did you say that? If you were on our Patreon, in our last Patreon video, we talked about Christmas carols and Ghosts of Girlfriends
A
Past was
Christmas
talked about a
Carol
lot.
and different variations of A Christmas Carol,
Right. So that's where
the
that came from.
story.
Go check out our Patreon.
It's great. You'll learn a lot of interesting things.
Right.
It's a bit more casual even than our podcast is. So if you like our banter here, you'll probably like it there too.
Right. It's basically Boo Sisters unedited. I feel
Yeah.
like is our
Yeah, it is.
Patreon because we just chit chat and mosey around. I guess that's it. See you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Come back here for the next episode. We'll be waiting for you.
Season 4 has launched. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for being part of our Boo crew. And thank you for sticking through this episode.
And we'll have some scarier stuff for you as the season goes on. If you like that kind of thing. And if you don't, remember we have boo skills on our episodes on the website. So if you ever just want an easygoing time of listening, go and check those out ahead of time.
Thanks for listening. And as always, happy
Happy haunting.
haunting.
You weren't recording? No, I'm just kidding.